exact opposites. One, we could become the most cynical generation ever, which really just does not care and doesn't care what happens to each other, and finds it basically impossible to really love someone, because it's hard to love someone if you think you're going to lose them soon. Either that, or we could all bond together so tightly and say, you know, we don't care what our problems with each other are, we've got to make these changes.
A questionnaire has been given to 1,000 grammar and high school students between 1978 and 1980. The questionnaires, taken in toto, showed that adolescents are deeply disturbed by the threat of nuclear war. They doubt about the future and their own survival.
Sometimes I feel really depressed, like there's no point in going to school because I'm going to die soon. A lot of times I'm really convinced that I'm going to die in a nuclear war.
They reveal their experience of fear and menace.
I don't feel like I'm safe when there are planes flying over me, and I don't know if they're from Russia or if they're just planes with passengers on them.
They express cynicism, sadness and bitterness, helplessness and powerlessness.
Suddenly I felt hopeless. I just felt totally no control. It was out of my hands. I had no say in what was going to happen. That someone could press a button and I would be dead.
They feel unprotected by the adult population. Some doubt about planning to have families or thinking ahead in any long-term sense.
Many people in my graduating class in my high school didn't expect to reach 30 years of age. If you don't expect to reach 30 years of age, how can you prepare yourself for a successful life?
We wonder about the impact on the very structure of personality in these people.
I was thinking, you know, why should I do anything if we're just going to blow up any minute, you know?
We must begin simply on a note of absurdity. Absurdity has several layers. There is first the structural absurdity. Just think, two great superpowers poised to annihilate each other and the rest of the world into the bargain.
Like they don't know how to stop it. They just keep on making more and more.
Our second level of absurdity is the existential one. All of our lives, the double lives that we lead, that is our awareness that at any moment, in a split second in time, we can be annihilated, along with everyone and everything we've ever loved or touched. And yet our going about business as usual, for the most part, as though no such threat existed.
A lot of grown-ups aren't letting themselves believe anyway, that this could happen, could ever happen.
There can also be numbing due to the absence of images. Nobody's experienced anything like a nuclear war. We have difficulty imagining it.
They can understand how easy it is to just sink into this, you know, apathetic, I'm not going to die, it's not really going to happen, it's not going to hurt me.
I think the threat of nuclear war is too scary for people to grasp onto. And that's why they put it out of their minds, because it's too mind-boggling. They can't deal with it as a whole concept. It's a tough thing to grasp.
They just don't want to know that they can't survive. Because they're afraid, so they don't want to think about it.
When you begin to imagine the possibility of the use of nuclear weapons, that is imagery of extinction, and this imagery begins in young people at the age of 4 or 5. It doesn't wait for adulthood. Children live in our culture with the media. They can't help but take in this imagery.
The kids already know, and kids' imaginations are just, I think, find a way to be even worse than nuclear holocaust.
I probably think about the threat of nuclear war at least once or twice a day. And when I think about it, it's hard to shake it off.
A child at the age of 4 to 5 to 6 or 7, as you know, is struggling not only with death, but with the more difficult idea that death is final. You can't just go to sleep and wake up again, as a child tries to believe for a while. Just at that moment, there impinges upon his psyche, or he's overwhelmed with imagery of grotesque, absurd death of everybody, not just the old dying, but everybody in the most grotesque, absurd way.
If a nuclear bomb went off, it would be lots of different teensy-weensy pieces.
Everything just disintegrating around you, and then it's next to be you to disintegrate.
Wood all around, bricks on the ground, little pebbles and bits of people. Black, all black and ashes and finished. There would be no plants or no animals or nothing. And I would probably have a disease. Radiation. People getting burned.
Almost everybody will be dead.
People dead everywhere on the ground, and the buildings disintegrated. And just awful things. Horrible. Nobody on Earth. Nothing you can see. That's it. No people. No people.
This represents a threat of a break in the great chain of being that has psychological consequences.
It's a very big responsibility for my generation to bear.
I don't want to have all this weight on my shoulders. I want to live. I want a chance to experience things while I'm young and not have to deal with all the things as an adult. And I can't. Because people... they need an escape too. And they're just dumping it on me. And the younger generation, and it's hard.
Sometimes it occurs to me that I might not grow up.
I had a nightmare, and I've had nightmares actually. It's the same thing, you know, over and over again. I'm just looking out the window, and it's regular, just like I always see it. And then it's like hearing like kind of a whistle, sort of, and just next thing I know, it's just all flames and smoke and a big black and white cloud, like, and then it's just all fire. It's just fire, just all burning. Then I see shadows like of the faces of the people, like my mother and sisters. And
It's invading our dreams. It's in our dreams. Why are we expected to accept the threat of nuclear destruction as part of our growing up experience? How are we supposed to start our lives with death looking over our shoulder?
I think I won't grow up a lot of the time. I find myself, you know, fantasizing about the future and then cutting it off and saying, that's ridiculous.
When I get depressed about nuclear war and the things that people have said about it, I usually talk to my mom or talk to somebody around me. It makes me feel better.
As far as scaring children by telling us, educating us, I think that it's more terrifying not to talk about it.
Mystery is the worst thing possible. Wondering. And if the people you look up to, if your parents won't talk about it, if your parents are scared to talk about it, that's terrifying for someone young.
I tried asking people, what's going on? What is happening, you know? And no one would tell me. They were afraid. They didn't want to talk about it. I had to go ask someone else. I had to read about it in the papers. And how much more scary was that for me?
They should talk to their child about it, so when they grow up, they won't do what the big people are doing now.
Russia has nuclear weapons because America does, and America has nuclear weapons because Russia does. So, just a wild goose chase.
I guess I can understand how the Russians feel, because I feel like they feel threatened. That's why they go bananas building weapons. And that's why we go bananas building weapons, because we feel threatened.
I have some friends that are Russian children, and I like to play with them, but I only have about 2 or 3. And it's neat to have a friend that's from a different place than you are. I like their accent. They like hamburgers. And French fries.
There's a total discrepancy between the way we are taught as children to solve our problems and the way governments do.
We've chosen to divide up this planet into small sections when we really could all, be as one instead of divided up.
Borderlines are really ridiculous things. If you've ever seen one, you make one step and you're in a different country, and what does it change? Nothing really changes. You don't change, and the people are just, the same people.
And we've got to learn some way of solving the differences between a group, individual, special nation, and not resort to weapons and killing someone and destroying someone or hurting someone.
People just haven't learned from the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all the horrors that went on there.
It was 37 years ago. It seems a long time, but to me, it feels as though it has happened only a few years ago. And I was 15 years at that time, and many children were going to school, taking the streetcar, buses. Some came into the city by train. But that morning, the B-29, we saw it. The parachute was dropped. We were curious as to what was happening. We didn't have any inkling of what was going on. And then suddenly, the bright flash, the explosion, then I lost consciousness. Later on, as the time went on, I found many people hurt, especially the children. Then later on in the day, the children, adults, everyone began to feel the pain and the moaning and the cry of help and suffering began to be heard all over the city. That morning, Hiroshima had approximately 340,000 people, but out of the 340,000 people, more than half eventually died. And even though Hiroshima was a modern city with everything that most cities had in the world, in a flash of light, in a few seconds, it almost completely disappeared and turned into a desert of death.
There was a lot of death. There were lots of people dying, and a lot of people now who are still ill from radiation, and they're still in the hospital, and it's just frightening to think about Hiroshima.
A lot of things were destroyed and blown up, and it was all messy, and most of the people were burnt up, and some of them were alive, but they're real hurt. They had just all evaporated somehow, and they just turned to drops of things.
When I was first learning about the subject, I went to go see some pictures of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. One of the most horrifying pictures I saw was one of a mother carrying her baby, trying to save it because it was about to die. She was trying to find someone to save her and her baby. There were some pictures of just people trying to save themselves, people dying, being piled up just everywhere. And when I got home, I was talking to my parents about it, and then I just started to cry.
I saw a picture of this guy. He had his eyeball in his hand. He was just standing there with his eyeball in his hand. I knew it could happen here too. If I heard that it was going to happen, I would be really scared. I would be by my family and friends and my dog and stuff. And I'd close my eyes, because I wouldn't want to see it.
If I had 5 minutes before a nuclear bomb hit my area, my country, the world, my first feeling would be incredible sadness that it was the end of such a wonderful race with so much potential.
We wouldn't be in separate rooms at that time. No. We'd stay together. My mom and dad would probably be crying. So would I.
I wouldn't say goodbye, I'd just say I love you. You know.
Well, I'm not going to take cover. That's it. It's going to happen. I'm going to accept it. There's nothing I can do about it.
I'd feel really scared, and I'd go to the nearest church and pray. There's nothing else to do.
I'd go run somewhere. Or I'd walk, because I might fall, but I walk fast.
I just run and hide under my bed.
I would hide, but there would be no place because it would just blow up.
It's been proven now that if you're in a shelter anywhere near any sort of fireball, that you'll be incinerated in a nicely cremated way.
All you have to do is dig a hole, get in the hole, put a door on, and put some dirt over the door, and it'll save you.
I suffocated in the hole.
If you hide in the hole, it's just, in the end, the radiation's just going to get you anyway. It doesn't really matter. But suppose it was possible, which it isn't, to survive it, and you came back up, there'd be nothing. You wouldn't have wanted to survive it.
If someone says to you, "You're going to be all right," you're going to want to hear it. You're not going to want to hear anything else.
The people who believe it are the people in power. Actually, today in the newspaper, there's an article on how we're still going to get the mail after a nuclear holocaust, and that we still have to pay taxes.
They think that they're going to survive it. That America's going to survive the bomb.
I think the idea of surviving nuclear war is incredibly dangerous because it could lead to one.
There shouldn't be any more nuclear bombs because in case any of them blow up, the world could be destroyed.
I mean, I'd like to have something to say if this world's going to be blown up.
I think that it would be much easier if the governments talked it over.
If we really communicated, I think we could get it settled.
People need our help all over the world. We should do something about that, and not just making extra nuclear bombs when we don't even need them at all.
I think what gives me the most hope in being able to stop the arms race and the possible threat of nuclear war is just how horrible nuclear war is. And that speaks for itself. If you can give the facts, most people will respond in, "Oh my God, I have to do something. This has to be stopped."
If people do work together, we can resolve this problem, but it's up to the individual.
Everyone counts, because some people might say, "Oh, I don't count that much. One person won't really matter at this rally." And if everyone said that, there wouldn't be anybody showing up there.
I just can't describe how it feels to be in the middle of a group of 10,000 people who agree.
Kids can do a lot of things. They could write letters.
And they can make posters and put up posters and stuff.
They could talk to people about the subject, tell people their feelings.
And I think that that's the key to our future, being emotional and letting our emotions show. And not being emotional is going to bring us into nuclear holocaust and not caring, and there's nothing wrong with caring.
We're not going to sit back and leave it up to everyone else anymore, and we're going to take some responsibility.
And it's action that makes me feel better, and being with other people who feel the same way.
You know, it's going to work, you know. There's more and more people. It's like a chain reaction. One person becomes interested, and the other person says, hey, you know, I can do something too.
There's a lot of groups trying to stop it.
If I heard that there's going to be all the weapons, you know, dismantled, and all of it's going to be shut down, I'd be so happy. I'd probably have a heart attack. I'd feel so great, you know. Just the thought of that lifted my spirits.
I would probably throw a big party and just celebrate.
I would feel so relieved and so happy. I just 200 cartwheels in a row or something. I just jumped through the roof.
I go tell all my friends if they weren't watching TV. We need to do something now about it, not 10 years from now, because 10 years from now we may not be here.
And if we don't do it now, we'll make the same mistake we made in the past. Because the previous generation, nobody told them. And look where we are now.
This is one Earth we've got, and it's the only one we've got.
A wonderful thought that gives me great strength is that if we can make it through this, if the human race can make it through faced with total destruction, then our potential would be it's so amazing. I mean, this is like the ultimate hurdle.
The fate of the Earth hangs in the balance. Because that is the story. It just hangs in the balance. It's the most important question ever, I think.
Just like the earth